Next item, item 4, is an order with respect to the Community Development Block Grant and Home Funds FY16 Action Plan. I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve order number 31-05162016, adopting the CDBG Consolidated Plan and Budget.
Second.
A motion from Councilor Stone and a second from Councilor Gilbert for order 31-05162016. Discussion from the council. Councilor Stone?
Yeah. Mr. Mayor, I have a couple of amendments to offer. The first, well, you want to do them one at a time?
Yeah.
Okay. First amendment. I don't know what the title of it is, but to ensure that the Hampshire Street reconstruction meets the needs of the neighborhood. The Hampshire Street project is being funded by a $500,000 Maine DOT municipal partnership initiative and a $500,000 local fund funding out of the proposed CIP for FY17. Project is being designed and engineered to a budget of $1 million rather than budgeted based cost to reconstruct this critical gateway to our Union Street and downtown target area neighborhood. An allocation of additional funding, as well as stipulations that engagement of street users and the billing committee be part of the design process, will open up opportunities for streetlights modeled after improved crossings, sidewalk benches, and trash receptacles, and other improvements to make the street the center of the neighborhood's revitalization. It's a long amendment, but that would be the amendment I would offer to this motion.
Do you have the funding source on that form? What you're proposing, what the proposed shift is on the back?
Reallocate $312,050 from the sidewalk project to the Hampshire Street project.
Do I have a second?
I second that.
A motion from Councilor Stone and a second from Councilor Titus. The motion is to reallocate $312,050 from the sidewalk project within the budget, CDBG budget, to the Hampshire Street reconstruction project. Further debate from the council on the amendment?
I would really support this amendment, Mr. Mayor. I think that we have talked long and hard as a council about the Hampshire Street corridor into our downtown. I believe in that vision, and I support it 100%.
Further debate? Anything from city management on allocating additional resources to the Hampshire Street project?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, absolutely not. I think this is a great use of these resources to utilize the funds that we have currently across the city that we've carried forward over traditionally year after year, and I think this is time to put some of this money into good use into the neighborhood that desperately needs it. So, thank you.
Debate from the council. I'll call for a vote. This is a vote on the amendment to reallocate $312,050 to the Hampshire Street reconstruction project. Those in favor, a show of hands. Those opposed, it carries 7-0. That'll be part of the full motion now.
Mr. Mayor, amendment number 2. To establish the Storefront Traffic Accelerates Revitalization Program, better known as STAR. This CDBG program would establish forgivable loans for up to $50,000 based upon several criteria. Number 1, location in a storefront location within one of the 3 target areas. Number 2, the loan must be matched dollar for dollar. And number 3, loan terms would be established following those used in the Gardner Growth Initiative. The funding source is $200,000 under economic development programs would be reallocated to the STAR program.
You have copies of that?
Yes, I do. Actually, I have, so why don't you pass them down?
Do I have a second to Counselor Stone's?
Second.
Look at all these copies. There you go. Motion by Counselor Stone and a second by Counselor Walker. This is to designate the $200,000 under economic development programs within the CDBG budget to a storefront traffic accelerate revitalization or STAR program that would establish forgivable loans of up to $50,000 following criteria included here that would be framed by city staff and brought back to the council for final adoption. Discussion from the council?
Mr. Mayor, so this would be coming out of the Small Business and Commercial Loan Program, is that correct?
It would be a reallocation of those dollars to comparable purpose, more aggressive terms.
What current programs are being funded through that line item?
It's the commercial loan program.
Do we have any loans in service through that program currently?
I believe we have a number of loans.
What would happen to those? What would happen to those loans if that program were to be cut?
The $200,000 in the budget is to recapitalize that loan program. So there's funds there now that are under loan. That this would take the loan terms and make them more aggressive and forgivable under certain job creation conditions.
Mr. Mayor, how active has that former loan program been?
Rain. Ask that Rain Monahan be able to address the council, please.
The mayor says to be more aggressive. So you get looking for more participation.
More aggressive in what is on the table would to really target, while there are other public loan programs available for small businesses and startups, this would specifically target trying to get businesses into storefronts and being aggressive in doing that.
So how active is that, the former loan program that would be in that category been?
How active?
Yes.
Well, this would be a new program. The current program that we have one application in the pipeline right now. We've had about one application per year.
So would you think that there'd be more people taking advantage of this?
I would think so. Anytime you have more gift, it's a lot easier to process applications.
Thank you.
Other discussion from the council? Call for a vote on the motion made by Councilor Stone and seconded by Councilor Walker for the STAR program under the Economic Development Program in the CBG budget. All those in favor, a show of hands. Those opposed? Carries 7-0.
Mr. Mayor, I would, if I may, would propose an additional amendment to the budget that we're discussing here to establish a neighborhood challenge grant program under the rehabilitation loan program. The program would offer 3 $25,000 grants for each target area to implement a project proposed by residents, tenants, property owners, or business owners in the respective target areas. And we've seen other work done in the Great Geneva, New York, the Greater Geneva Neighborhood Challenge. But this challenge grant would provide the community eligible for rehab loans would be earmarked for this program. Union Street in downtown, $25,000 out of the existing $250,000 rehab loan would be earmarked for the program, and $50,000 would be budget from downtown TIF account balance for one New Auburn and one downtown project. And I think that the overall goal of this would be to support turning around our target areas and to provide incentives not only for new owners of property to make improvements, but to community members, partner groups, and investors to build relationships together for neighborhood revitalization. I think it'd be a good allocation of resources.
I want to clarify, you mentioned 3 grants, then mentioned 25,000 out of the rehab loan. Since the TIF accounts in our future amendment, because it would be a new program, isn't on the table, are you suggesting just right now that within the rehab loan budget line, that 25% be earmarked for a neighborhood challenge grant and that it's initially targeted to Union Street?
And I would hope that we can clean that up later with the TIF discussion,
Okay.
the TIF budget.
I'll make note.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilor Pross and a second from Councilor Walker to clarify. It's to designate $25,000 within the $250,743 rehab loan program to be earmarked for a neighborhood challenge grant. Jim's included within that some. Looks like the Geneva Neighborhood Challenge information was included. So this is the funds would be earmarked, and staff would develop the program details and come back to the council to adopt those. This just sets that direction. Discussion from the council on that, or any comment from management?
So the program that's being, this would be pulled from, just to clarify once again, would be the rehabilitation loan program.
Yes.
Currently, so of the $250,743 that are currently allocated, do we have any indication of this sounds like a great program. I just want to make sure we're not pulling it from a program that needs that funding. Do we have any sense of how much of that funding is generally pulled from that program? Are we carrying over year to year? Is this funding that will hurt this program if we're going to maintain this program and just pull $25,000 from it?
Staff know what we rolled over in the last year from the rehab loan program?
I'm not positive, but I believe it was, quote me if I'm wrong, Rain, it was over 150,000.
Okay. So that, it seems like this is a solid program in the very brief moment that I'm reading it here. Some light reading as we debate these amendments. So this is a pre-existing program that's been done elsewhere?
I think that Geneva, New York State, probably a pretty comparable city when you think about its geographic location and its history, did have some success with this, and I think that's what it's modeled after. Of course, we'll have flexibility within our own department to adapt as necessary, but it's a relatively small amount of money for a program that has driven success elsewhere in our northeastern region of the United States.
The debate. I'll ask the council for a vote. Those in support of the amendment, show of hands. Those opposed? That carries 7-0. Anything else from the council?
Mr. Mayor, I have another amendment that I'd like to propose if I could.
The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Proposed amendment to establish an Auburn cooperative housing program, something that's been on my mind and near to me as I've assumed this role as city councilor. I feel that we should do something here with this budget that's on our plate right now to establish cooperative housing models. They've been proven to be a means of providing ownership models that really help to share the maintenance and management of multifamily units while also helping to deepen neighborhood connections and making connections between owners and where they live. This model has been really well done. It's been well documented in the city of Lewiston with the Raise Op cooperative housing organization. some really great individuals really went out on a limb to start something out over there, and I can't help thinking that we have a really good opportunity here in this budget cycle to try to encourage investment in that type of cooperative housing investment, and I hope that we can do that here. So I am proposing that we reallocate $225,000 from the proposed purchase of 2 single-family dwellings under the home budget to provide purchase, rehab, technical support for cooperative housing in our target areas under CDBG funding.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilor Prost, second from Councilor Stone. The motion within the home budget would be to reallocate the $225,000 from the special project purchase of 2 single-family dwellings to purchase rehab technical support for cooperative housing in the target area. Discussion of the amendment?
I'm very familiar with the cooperative housing, and I think it's a great idea. And I'm glad you're bringing it to Auburn, the idea, and hopefully it will take off. Thank you.
Other debate from the council?
I'm not sure exactly what it is. I mean, I plead ignorance.
Yeah, the model that Rayzop has used, so there's a group that created an organization in Lewiston, and rather than having folks generate equity or earn equity by buying a single-family home, they actually create a shared base model where they buy a multifamily, and each of the tenants has equity and owns shares of the company within that, and they plan maintenance and capital, do the budgeting for the unit as a shared ownership of a multifamily.
I think, you have further questions?
No, I just...
I think this is going to fit very well with the Hampshire Street
Yes.
rehab project.
There's a high sense of cooperation with the people who own the building. They have community meetings. They decide monthly if any improvements need to be made. It's a constant community effort, and it's great.
And I think it's a great way to revitalize some of our older housing
Yes.
stock.
I'm a huge fan of cooperative housing. I think it's the right direction for the city to move in. I would just ask for clarification on this specific project. Are we proposing an incentive program to facilitate this? What exactly would be the role in the city with this funding in promoting a cooperative housing program?
Well, I don't think it's been 100% finalized, but I think the important thing is that we're reallocating $225,000 from a model that probably has not worked necessarily for our city in terms of rehabbing and being responsible within the community development department to redevelop buildings, but rather to try to put those, I mean, we've focused so much, even before any of us were, or most of us were counselors, on having owner-occupied units. This has been a big focus on reestablishing solid values in our downtown and investment. So I think this is more of a reallocation from existing resources that would otherwise go to redeveloping a building that might be out there, those $225,000, and helping to foster this sort of ownership that we would really like to see in our communities, especially in these areas that we're trying to target.
May I add to that affordable housing and more affordable housing for families?
And it appears so we administer the home fund for both Lewiston and Auburn on our own. We would not be able to get home funds, so we kind of came together. It appears Lewiston is allocating some of their home funds towards cooperative housing, so I think there's clearly an opportunity to see if there's some synergies in the model. If both cities want to pursue more cooperative housing, then I think there's going to be an opportunity to work with Lewiston to do that.
Absolutely. So the specific funding that we're talking about, I seem to remember had to do with it was these proposed purchases were being made in an effort to get rid of some rollover funding that we had that was putting us in jeopardy with HUD, is what I seem to recall with that. Is there an issue if we don't execute these purchases? Will we be in danger of whatever consequences were in play had this funding not been dispersed. I seem to recall this was part of a larger scheme within the CDBG program.
I'll look to management to see if there are any timing issues to reallocate from the single-family purchases.
This is assuming that the city of Auburn is going to be the developer of these projects. And it would require the council then to enter into a contract to purchase those properties and redevelop them by the end of August, let's say, of this year.
So between now and August, we would have to enter into a purchasing agreement based on this new program?
It would require the city to identify the property, to do all of the underwriting, and yes, enter into a purchase and sale, have all of the resources available because that's what's required to do the underwriting, and then, be prepared to enter into a contract, yes, and have a purchase and sale.
In your opinion, would there be enough turnaround for us to do that? And if not, what would the consequences be?
I don't know. This is the first time I hear about this project, so...
Me too, that's why I'm asking.
That's a challenge, but I think if you're talking about you don't have a particular model, you have to make decisions about the model. You have to find properties. You have to make a decision whether you want to be the developer or find a partner. All of that needs to be done by August, sometime in August.
And so again,
consequences, yes, you could lose the money.
So so are we talking specifically about that 230, the amount that was allocated specifically for this line item, or?
Yes, 225. And remember that money is you might say borrowed from another project, and that was the 62 Spring Street project that the city council committed funds to, $250,000. And the reason it's available is because the 62 Spring Street development does not have its full funding. It's still looking for tax credit from Maine Housing, and until they get a tax credit allocation, they're not ready to move forward, which means we can't do our underwriting, we can't do all of the necessary paperwork to be able to make a commitment. And so all of those things have to happen before we can commit those funds in our HUD system. The same thing would apply to this new co-op project. You would need to go through all of that same process for the co-op project by August. So those acquisition and rehabs and then resale, that money would actually go back into the 62 Spring Street project.
So instead of buying 2 buildings, it looks like Councilor Prost is suggesting we might buy 1, and rather than having 2 owners, we may get 3 or 4 owners if it's a multifamily.
I'm just concerned about the time frame. If we don't spend this money, it sounds like we'll lose it within a very short frame of time.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we'll reach out to HUD to determine that. I don't want to jump to conclusions or assumptions, but we need to get direction from them before we assume that that we'll lose it, because there's many instances where they've allowed that money to be carried over or extended during a contract period. So we'll get that answer for you.
Again, I just don't want us to try to do a good thing and end up not getting the funding that we were going to be getting in the first place if we're not able to turn this around quickly enough.
The worst thing we can do is not do a good thing because we're afraid of what might happen.
Well, the worst thing we could do is lose $225,000.
We don't want to pass up an opportunity here.
I'm just a bit concerned about the speed in which we are making this decision.
Again, the current budget would have the city buy and do that entire process for 2 buildings. I think Councilor Prost is suggesting that may be streamlined to.
But those buildings have been identified, and everything has been put in place for us to execute those purchases, is my understanding. We're in the process of having our director of community development retire between now and August. Again, my concern is a capacity one.
Mr. Mayor, it's, we need to get a purchase and sale agreement. Don't need to get a closing.
Do we have any properties identified? Is that,
I defer to staff. I don't know.
Any other debate from the council? Does management have concerns about the amendment or any further thoughts on the amendment being offered by Councilor Pross?
We do not.
Take a vote of the council by a show of hands. Those in support? Opposed? Carries 7-0. Any other amendments or debate of the council? I will open the floor to the public for any comments on the CDBG and Home Fund Action Plan. Okay. I will bring it back to the council. Requires 4 affirmative votes for passage. All those in favor, show of hands. Those opposed? It carries 7-0. Thank you, council. I have had a request from some councilors for a brief 2-minute recess. We're 2 hours into this meeting with much work ahead of us. So we'll have a quick 2-minute recess and come back.